This is what if Belle Crinell was betrayed? Now you might be wondering, how's he gonna be betrayed? Well, in this version, Hestia gets a couple extra people after Belle brings that team. And not after he brings the team. In this version, it's right after the Minotaur attack. He was covered in blood, he came back, he got Argonaut and all that, and she told him that she had more people. He already knew she had more people because he heard them talking. He knew she was going to get rid of him because he's learned this from Zeus, his biological grandfather in this version. He might be in the anime, not really sure, but he's 100% in this version. So yeah. By the way, Belle's full name is Belle Pendragon Crinell. If you know who Pendragon is, it's the legendary real-world hero, Arthur Pendragon. He was a king in the medieval times. Real world. So yeah. Belle, he gets kicked out and he's bloody and beaten because it was a level 6 that joined their team and she got rid of Belle because Belle was drifting away from her in her thoughts. And there's a rule that you have to stay in a familia for 1 year, or there's a rule you have to stay in a familia for 1 year. So instead, because he's only been there for like 2 months, he actually, the rule is that if a god kicks you out, you're able to leave, but if you choose to leave, you're unable to unless the god chooses to kick you out. Which means you basically just have to be a little jerk, and that's the only way you can get kicked out of familia under a year. Yeah. And Belle, he has no more of that arcanum, but he does know his grandfather's power has arcanum. So he doesn't use it because, well, it takes a toll on his body, but it at least can work for him. So it's kind of like a leveling system similar to that, but he doesn't have to wait for someone to help him. And he gets this by going and grabbing that sword you see in this picture. In canon, the only weapon he has is, I think that's the dagger. Yeah, he has this dagger, but in this version he has this sword as well. It was the sword of Zeus. And he carries this on his back. So, yeah, it looks awesome. Hold on a second. He has a couple other blades. He has this blade, which is a dragon slayer blade. He has this blade, which is an awesome blade, so he has a katana because it looks awesome. So he's got 4 swords and 1 knife. But I'm about to add something on here. Hold on, give me a sec. When I told you his name was Pendragon, that also means he has this, the Pendragon sword, Excalibur. I'm going to say his great-grandfather on his mother's side was a Pendragon, the granddaughter of Arthur, and his father being the son of Zeus got together, so his name is Belle Pendragon Crinell. They kept the Pendragon in it for the middle name because it's awesome. And yeah, he doesn't tell anyone his middle name because he just doesn't want to, but he tells people his first name and last name. So people know him as Belle Crinell, but they do. But now he goes by Belle Pendragon Crinell. What I mean by this is because he has Excalibur. And Excalibur is a very powerful weapon. Only the worthy may wield the sword, and the one who does may become next king. But in this version, there was actually an adventurer as strong as Argonaut. It was the Pendragon. Because in this version, it was Argonaut Pendragon, who was actually the brother of Arthur. And Arthur was slightly stronger than his brother. So yes, the Argonaut only showed his first name, Argonaut. Just his title was all heard. But Pendragon was a well named was a well-known name. So yeah, this is Excalibur. And it does come with a sheath, but I'm not sure. Yeah. So, this is Excalibur. It's a really nice blade. It does come with a sheath, but that's not really much. So he has a lot of swords. Give me a second. This is actually the legendary sword, not that other one. That other one was actually a slightly weaker sword. But, yes, Bell is actually really powerful. This sword is powerful, but it's the sword of... it's just a normal sword, so I'm not giving it to him. But he's getting it made for him by Welsh. So... this is after he meets Welsh and Lily, but in this version he hasn't done that Minotaur attack thing, and in this version Welsh will be present for that. First Minotaur attack that happened to him already happened. But the second one, that one with the sword, has not happened. And being betrayed set out his godly powers to their full potential. He wasn't getting held back anymore, which I'm going to say they were always being held back by his kind nature, but here's how the being betrayed went down. Get out and give me all your money. That's exactly what Hestia said with the level 6 adventurer that she just got on her side, right next to her. Bell, knowing he's got two options, he can either run, be caught, and get beaten down to a bloody pulp, or he'll just let everything happen. Which the way to get Arcanum out is by showing your back and getting the whole thing happening. He says fine and takes his shirt off for the Arcanum thing to get removed. When it is, she notices something. Bell has got skills called enragement skills. He's angry. And well, it shows now he's back to level 0. He's stronger than he was before because his anger is at its peak. Well, he was only level 1, so now he's at least level 4 with strength alone, not even adding any of his spells or anything. He already has Firebolt, which is pretty easy for him to use, but he has another one called Light Lances, and sorry about that, and Flame Manipulation. Flame Manipulation is any spell that has fire he can control. He has one for lightning, called Lightning Manipulation and Light Manipulation. They work same as fire manipulation. Any spell that consists of that, he can control. But not to the best of its abilities yet. So, Bell, he's gone, and when he's told, give me all your money, he doesn't, he just throws the money he has at her. Which is not much, it's only a couple bags. And when he's told to get out, he just leaves. And he's not got the awesome gear he has in this. He doesn't have any awesome gear. He doesn't have this awesome gear. He doesn't have this awesome gear. He's back to his old. This gear. But don't worry, he won't stay like that for long. He has stronger gear. Like this sword, which is his normal sword now, because he had been stabbed in the side with that knife. They didn't care about it, so they just let it loose. And he just said that she doesn't know why. He just disappeared. She acts like he was killed in the dungeon, and Hephaestus accepts the payment without any pay. Actually, no. Because of how strong those levels are, a level 6, I'm going to say he went into the dungeon, went to like the 17th floor, started fighting. I mean, like the 18th, no. 17th floor is the one with the Goliath, I think. 18th is that calm floor. He went to the 19th with something, we went to the 19th floor and started killing things. He wasn't quite strong enough to kill... He was strong enough to kill that Goliath thing on his own, but not really. There's only 2 people who have done it, which would be Otter from the familia of that goddess that's obsessed with Belle that keeps sending creepy things at her. And then you have the ultimate in fighting ability. In my opinion, she was stronger, but she's more just light on her feet than the dude since he's all power based. So she is eyes. She is actually not quite as tough as he is since she mainly relies on her speed. And it was like him and Bete are like a little difference in strength because Bete's also a strong fighter, but yeah. In this version, Belle's at least level 4 at this point with his strength. He goes into the forest, he sees these 2 blades. When he touches it, he says he needs something. And he pulls some leaves down, mends his wound, even has some string and all that because adventurers have to keep a first aid kit on him. He does that, and he like stitches himself up. He's in a lot of pain though as he does this. And he sees these 2 swords, and he sees there's writing there. It says, "If he be worthy to wield my sword, he shall be king." It says this right on the Excalibur blade. He takes it, saying, "I'm probably not worthy, but I'll give it a shot." He pulls it out without any effort. He says, "Wow, so easy." And when he pulls it out, it's just heals him completely. No need for stitches, no need for anything. He's safe, he's fine, he's unstoppable. And then he walks into the forest a little bit further, because he heard a noise, and he thought, I need something to eat, and I ain't got no money. He was gonna cook like a food or something, which he saw a boar running towards a direction. Then he saw a giant sword, the one he has right now in this picture. He sees that sword stabbed into the ground with something saying, "To my grandson, Bel, here is your sword. It is from I, Zeus." And when he sees this, he's just like, "Thanks, old man. Thanks, Gramps." He takes the sword, and he's just picks it up. Both of them seem light as a feather, but anyone else tries picking them up, it's like lifting a truck. Which, that's just what I'm gonna say. And Bell, he sees these blades, and he's fine with how heavy they are. They're no big deal to him. So he starts going, and so he goes back into the dungeon wearing his, really bad designed... I hate having to do this every time. Hold on, guys. He just goes wearing this normal old... Forget it. Just taking the one from the picture right here. He just goes wearing this. And he's got those awesome blades on his side. Now, he doesn't get all of them yet. He sees the other ones, and he's able to pick them up, but he says, where am I going to put these? And then he has an idea. Magic. He thinks, and because magic is personal, he thinks. He goes to sleep for a minute, surrounded by the blades, and he thinks for a minute. In his sleep, it says, "What do you wish? What do you need? What do you will?" And he has a book. I'm going to say a book warped in front of him by Zeus. Said, "Learn the dimension gap magic." It's what he told his grandson, and he told him about the dimension gap magic. He just knit it, but now Belle's remembering about it, and he sees the book. He knows the grimoire. He flips through the pages fast, and boom. He goes to sleep, and he wakes up a couple minutes later with the magic of a void. He's able to put anything in this void. It's like a room. He even can make it person-sized and just go inside of it to rest. basically the perfect shoplifting thing, but he won't do it. So he goes to, and he enhances that little bag he has for that little backpack he has on his back. Wow, there are no shots of his bag. Anyway, his little bag, and he puts all of the stuff in that. Okay, now back to these weapons, and hold on. Yeah, and that's when he just goes there, and he meets, I'm going to say he didn't quite meet Lily or that dude yet, or Welsh yet, so he goes to the dungeon. And it took 2 days for him to meet Lily completely. In this version, it was after he was betrayed. He's got the blades on him. He's got the void. He sees her running. He steps in because he does keep this blade on his back. He keeps the other blades on him, but he doesn't. But he uses that magic, and he has that little dagger on his side as well. So, yeah. And people seeing all these massive blades on this dude are just like, who is this guy? Some guy carrying. He's the weapon carrier for his team or something. And they notice that they all have ruins on them, just like, these are god-made weapons. No one can make these but a god. They notice this and they're just like, wow. And Belle sees this dude swinging this normal size sword, and he doesn't even feel it be fit to wield. He picks up that little dagger of all things and swings it out. And in this version, he has no caring left, so he straight up cuts straight through this dude's blade, and then takes that blade and saying, "I'm about to stab you in the face." And and then this dude's like, "Nope, nope, 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 nope," and just runs. And Belle says, "You okay there, little girl?" And then he sees that she ran off, but he knows where she is because void magic allows you to sense where people are and their energy, even their magic. So you can tell who they are, what they're doing, exactly all that. Usually only a god can wield this, but Zeus is his grandfather, so he'll allow it. Anyway, yeah, and he can also tell when people are saying the truth and when they're lying to him. And Belle starts getting to work. He picks up that sword. And when she sees all these swords that he has, she knows that he's either a high-level adventurer or filthy rich. He is neither, but she thinks these things, so she thinks she'll party up with him. So the next day, he was talking to Aina about getting a supporter. Sorry about that, guys. And his supporter is going to be Lily. He actually talks to her about this, and she says, sure. And he says, so you owe me about that. And he talks about that time. And he says, I know when someone is lying, you don't need to. It's just like, what? And she's just completely dumbfounded. And she tells him the truth about her life story and all that. In this version, she won't betray Belle, but she'll still pull that stupid thing with that knife, but he'll actually get up after that. Unlike Canon, he actually has the sword. He's fighting, and he gets hit by one of them orcs straight on, with them being like 7 of them. And all these little suckers are doing is throwing attacks at him, one after another, repetitively for a while. Belle starts to notice that he smells something. He smells bait. It's made for the higher level adventurers to to get monsters to come towards them. If they're faster ones are made to run towards them so they can ambush monsters. But there's no one ambushing anyone but the monster. Then he turns seeing Lily standing on a cliff, basically messing with the whole thing and getting him and taking his weapons. All he has left is a normal old knife. Just a normal knife, not even the Hestia knife, which he changed its name to be the Crenel knife. And he starts just using a normal dagger that breaks. So he starts going down into punches, and he punches. One punch is able to break them, but still there's so many of them. After about 20 seconds, he's able to get rid of all of them. But he's tired. He's able to gather up all the coins. His coin thing was taken too, so he just shoves them in his paw. I'm going to say he had he's that warp magic, and he just puts them all in there. And he straight up just blitzes past. Instead of anyone dying because those guys were being jerks, when that ant was about to come, Bell straight up just stabs all those little ants that were coming. I mean, that dude actually had stayed, and he had said, "Fine, I won't take pay, but I'm coming with you." Because he doesn't want to die, and he knows at this floor he could die. They say, "Sounds good to me," with their stupid voices. And these four guys are attacking now, and Lily has betrayed all of them. Not only betrayed the same way she did Belle, or want them or get them killed. What she did was she just disappeared while they were doing their work and told them wrong destination and got one of them cut. Which in their eyes is mean, so they're gonna mess with her. Belle also has this javelin from right here, and these two long knives or short swords, and he wields those, but he doesn't often use them. He doesn't have any of the gear, but he's fighting, and he punches, and then he yells firebolt. They see, and this is when they're all covered in ants. Those guys had disappeared, all four of them. Lily about to be attacked. You hear firebolt. All the ants got burned by this. There was a couple there was like a row that didn't. So Bell pops his neck, and he gets into a fighting stance and asks Lily to get his stuff back. Now, they saw all this. They couldn't see that little Hestia knife, and when he sees that she lost all his weaponry, he says, "Fine." He gets the Hestia knife back and starts slicing through them all, and then stabs the last one in the head. And Warp grabs all of those stuff, and then he just says, "Now," with a snap of his fingers, him and I forgot her name. Lily, both arrive to where those four are right before they get out of the dungeon. They're on floor 1. Which you're allowed to fight in the dungeon. We've seen this because Belle's gotten beaten up in the dungeon without any repercussions. So Belle pops his hands and says, "Y'all done stole my weapons. You're about to die." When they hear this, they just like, "Oh, no, 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 he made it up from there, and he's already caught up with us. This must be a high-level dude she betrayed." And they notice that she's right next to him, and they're just like, "She betrayed you, why are you still with her?" And it's just like, "Because she gave me my knife back." He pulls the Hestia knife out and said, "I'm gonna stab all of you." They already noticed that he's a lot stronger than them. When he goes to slice, they pulled their normal swords out, and they all got sliced through, like a flaming knife through butter. Yeah. People say hot knife through butter, but this was even smoother than that. And they see this, and they're just like, "Forget this." They run, but they drop the weapons too. They have their normal swords, because the way he cut it off, there was like half their sword was left, so they could still fight with it. Since he was prepared to actually cut them all to pieces and feed them to the Minotaurs and all that on floor 15. So they actually say, "We give up." And they even dropped a lot of money too. And he had gathered enough of these things, because this was all in one day, that he's already got enough money to actually buy a large thing. Like, I mean, he can actually buy a house if he wants to. Better than that stupid church. Though they moved into a higher class building. Not quite that manor, but it's as big as the manor. So, yeah. He's just... The level 6 thinks he's untouchable, and he's been dating, and he decides to date Eyes, which, being his level, only 2 people can stand up against him. That would be Eyes herself and Otter, someone known as King. Sword Princess and King are the only 2 people strong enough. While that's just on the radar, Zeus comes back to Arario. And anyone who wants to try stopping Zeus, he is Zeus, the strongest god. He can even match Hades, the guy who's supposed to be the leader of the council, in brute force. And he doesn't put his divine powers away. He has them out. Unlike all the other gods who have them all weakened, he has them full powered. When he went back to heaven, he got them back after 2 minutes. He comes back because he's been gone for years, keeping that black dragon seal stuck, but he knows he can't keep it sealed forever, and he has his full divine powers back, and he walks into Arario, and all the gods turn their head because they're like, he's back. And Hades has a warp video thing. He's looking right at Zeus, and Zeus says, "Hey, grandson," when he looks at Bel. And Soma himself stopped making wine and dropped what he was making. He turned his eyes because even he knows, bow to the king. And he's not even, and no one is even on his level. Like all of the gods put together would lose a fight to Zeus. And Bel's half as strong as Zeus, so he could actually take on the gods. But he doesn't. So Bel says, "Hey, Grandpa," and then this is after he had met Welsh and had that one day where he wasn't doing anything. He gets everything ready. He got the normal armor. He has this armor now. But he still doesn't. And he basically has this armor with this knife, with this giant sword and the knife and all that. And he says, "So you got my present, grandson?" And Bel says, "Yes, Grandpa." And Bel knows that his grandpa basically can make anything. Not like Hephaestus with crafting after getting the materials. He can create the materials, create the weapon, all of that on its own without even getting anything. Just a little bit of magic weakening. Which, being that gods are basically the source of all magic and use infinite magic, they're fine with that. Doesn't even weaken them at all. Just take some of their magic away that will get rebuilt in less than a second. Hold on, guys, I gotta get something to drink. Good water. Anyway, he starts going back and training. And Bel actually says he doesn't have Fallen anymore, and he knows, and Zeus knows this since he was using that mirror thing that all the gods can use, because he basically invented it. And he's just like, "I see that. Join my familia." And all the familia members are actually dead. All the Zeus familia members, but they're actually all in the heavens and in hell. Their missions now consist of being in those areas where only the gods can usually transfer through. But now they're allowed to because that's where their missions are kept. And there's actually a party held by Zeus himself. And the lady who got rid of Zeus, now knowing that Zeus is the grandfather of the person she's been trying to get in her familia, she's like, "Oh, crap." And I'm going to say, now that Zeus is back, I'm going to have that little Minotaur thing happen, because the Minotaur was already trained to fight Bel, but it just hadn't yet. It had been trained even stronger, to where it was at least level 7, where it would take a level 7 to beat it, so it's basically equivalent to the Goliath, basically, and it can regen. It would take burning from the inside, which even some gods could have trouble beating this thing. And it was trained with Otter, and Otter in this version basically apologizes. He says, "I'm sorry. you had a lot of time working, but I can't do this. And he's been in that familia for over a year, and he stays in that familia. And Eyes, in this version, Otter's familia was going down, and so was Eyes' familia, the Loki, and the other one. I forgot the name, please put it down in the comments if you will. And Bell is actually, he sees this Minotaur, and he says, "Not again. I hate these things." And he sees this Minotaur, because he had been going down to floors, and Welsh is with him in this version. Welsh had already made that armor and all that, joined the team, they were one day being weird and all that happened. And this is before they get the whole betrayal thing happening, where those jerks straight up ran by them, leading monsters to them, which won't go as canon. In this version, they start fighting and fighting. When Bell sees this thing, it goes to throw a hit, Lily pushing Bell out of the way, Bell pushing Lily out of the way. They both push each other out of the way, him being a lot heavier, so she couldn't push him. He basically jumps to the side, pushing Lily, and both of them actually got hit. Bell taking the majority of the hit, and her taking like not even a 20th of the hit, and being sent flying back. He catches her, can't do any healing magic, sadly. And then the Loki familia comes, as well as Otter. Otter and Eyes being the strongest two, even Bete is there. And those three are just all standing there like they're about to have to fight this thing, because they see the strength of this thing. While Otter was the one training it, it still knows, kill all. It would even attack Zeus. It doesn't matter how powerful something is, it goes to attack. Because we've seen Minotaurs trying to throw hands that just got instantly flicked away. So Bell doesn't even get a weapon out for this. But this Minotaur is wielding a legendary sword, similar to the one Bell has. It's more like the one from this picture, but it's still pretty much an OP sword. But he's... what the heck? Hold on a second, guys. Okay, I'm back. Just had to find the picture again. So, Bell, he's fighting, and when he sees that this Minotaur gets out a giant legendary weapon, he says, okay. And he picks up Zeus's original sword, and he just picks it up and starts swinging, and he chops through this weapon like it's nothing. And all his weapons can handle Argonaut. Even especially like any of the gods' weapons, because those things were made to handle the original power of gods, which all the swords he has are god level. They were all made by the gods. He even can wield some unstoppable sword. He even has this javelin right here. Belcrinel. Belcrinel Dungeon Ni Diala. Whoa. Yeah, that one. It's on the right. And Bell, he has those twin swords too, but he has this javelin which he doesn't use. And he has all these outfits now that he just chooses not to wear. And he even has this magic, but he doesn't use a book for magic because that's not how it works. They have the magic with him already. He has all these outfits depending on what season it is, but he keeps all the weapons. He can freeze any animal, he can burn any animal. Sorry about that. So he's straight up he's fighting the Minotaur. And the Minotaur, it landed some good hits and actually made him bleed. He wipes it off like it ain't nothing and punches the Minotaur once. Because now he's going serious. And then even Eyes was having trouble keeping up with it. Like, Eyes, Otter, and Bete were the only ones who were even able to keep up with it that were there. The Magic Girl was not quite able yet. She was one level away from being able to. But she couldn't tell exactly what was happening, but she was able to tell who was actually leading the fight. But Bell, they've noticed something. Bell is holding back. He'll throw a punch that should be able to eradicate things, but he pulls it back slightly with its speed and force. And he's throwing punch after punch after punch after punch. The Minotaur, because its blade was broken, and it stabs straight into Bel's stomach, which breaks off one of its horns. Which in this version, yeah, it had broken off a horn before, but that was because it was chopped off. This version, it just straight up busted on Bel's skin. And then anyway, Bell is actually doing his thing. Sorry about that, guys. Bell is doing his thing. And he starts to, like, fight. Really fight. And he actually cuts directly through the Minotaur. And he notices that magic might be the best way because it keeps regenerating. The horn regenerated. And every time it regenerates, it gets stronger. So, he ends it by chopping through it and putting his hand inside of it, going firebolt, 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 firebolt. And it explodes the same way it did in canon. But in this version, there was those horns, one fell, and there was a magical jewel inside of it as well. Which should not be possible, but I'm making it possible. So yes, it had both the magical jewel and a legendary thing. So, yeah. Bell talks to, and by the way, Welsh was with them in this. He took some of that attack too with Lily, so they both took that attack. They both asked for help, and they both got their healing. And they were beaten badly by one swing of this thing, and they noticed that Bell straight up chopped through this thing like it was nothing. And Welsh is just like, I can make a fine blade. Because he's a blacksmith, and Bell says, you think so? Let's get it made. It's like, okay, well, let's get out of the dungeon first. And it's just like, yeah, I got you. Let's go. And they just are just like astonished. And Bell asks for some more gear by Welsh because his just got absolutely demolished by this one Minotaur. Because that gear was not strong. It was just lightweight plates. So every punch this thing through could shatter him. So his upper half is straight up completely just upper half of armor gone. But he's straight up unhurt. And he actually passes out from using so much magic, similar to Mind Zero. And they look at his stats, it says Zeus familia. Name Bell Pendragon Crenel. He went through all his swords, the ice sword, the fire sword, all that. He even went through Excalibur and chopped through this thing once. It took longer, but it still healed. So Excalibur is a legendary weapon, but not really the most legendary. But yeah, his strongest two weapons are Excalibur and those picture right here. When he can dual wield them both. He doesn't have to see how he's one hand picking it up. The other hand is not quite picking it up yet. Yeah, he can actually dual wield both swords, but he doesn't. He basically can pull any sword and just dual wield it. He has this sword right here, but he doesn't often use it. And there's going to be a party made by Apollo, thinking that Bell's weak, so he can actually get it from Zeus. Those guys actually insult Zeus, saying, just a weakling who had to wait in heaven to get his powers back to come back. They talk smack, and one of them say, puny wannabe. And this was the level 3. In this version there's a couple level 5. They were all actually a couple levels higher. So that level 1 dude was actually level 3. Welsh in this time had leveled up to level 3. Lily was level 3. And I'm going to say they got a couple extra people on their team. I'm going to say they had that lady on their team because what happened was when they did that drive-by thing, there was actually a level 3 and 4 with them. Mito was level 3, and when they actually see that oh no. There are Minotaurs, a lot of Minotaurs, like Zeus, like the same kind of Minotaurs that Bel had to fight, which they're not really the fastest, but they're fast with their hands. So they're all running past, and they see Bel doing this, and Bel gets stuck. In this version, they actually gets cut off by a couple of these, and Bel says, "We have to get out of here. I know he'll try drive-bying us, but let's get out of here together." And Bel, him being a nice guy, doing this, and they said we have to get to the 18th floor, and then Bel says, "The boss, I can get rid of him if need be." And they're all weakened after this. They don't lose any weapons, they don't lose any gear. Bel just warp blacks into that zone and just carries it there. But the people, he can't do that. Only he can go in this zone without being demolished. Anything non-living can go in there, but anything living would get hurt if it went inside, unless it was using enough unless it was magically surrounding itself. So he's actually just walking in, just fighting through it, and he notices something. There's something coming. A Minotaur, that Goliath, he's actually carrying all their teams. And he's actually one step after another pulling them through. They're all on his back, and he's actually a lot more muscular in this version, since he'd actually been practicing wielding this giant sword on his back. So he gets more muscles because he just thinks it looks better, and he starts actually going and fighting. Even with them on his back, he's just going spell after spell, firebolt, firebolt, firebolt. He's using light spears and lightnings and lightning smite, but it's not enough. So he keeps doing this, and he notices that him repetitively using this warp to gather all the crystals is starting to take a toll on him. He's only got a little bit of magic left. He might be able to do 7 spells, and they're right next to the Goliath room. They're walking, they walk in, they walk through. The Goliath starts going, and he starts running with them all on his back. And then the Goliath broke out. Well, they're all sliding down that thing. Bel not quite able to. It goes and punches Bel. Bel launching Warp Gate at its hand, covering its hand, to where it's straight up gone. Its entire arm is gone, and he just uses Black Slice, which is something that basically uses the warp and all his magic together to make it a basically blade type thing. He even picked up his sword and started swinging it to make this thing happen, and afterwards he was really tired. He put his sword back, but he was using Argonaut for this, so it used a lot of magic. He only could do 1 spell left. And the spell he chooses is Zone, kind of like gathering it up, that giant crystal, and he starts, like, stepping. He sees they're all together, and they're all passed out. They're not there yet. They're only halfway. Because I'm going to say that they didn't wake up, but, like, they stopped. He picks them all up and starts, like he slides the rest of the way down with them on his back. And when he makes it there, he actually says, "Help us," as he drops his hand, as he's exhausted, and he was pulling himself getting there. He said, "Help them, please," and then he collapses. Because he was using all his might to stay out of getting into mine 0, since he used all the spells he had. But he was not done yet. He wakes up like in canon, and he's exhausted, but like he's still got the wrapper over his head because he tanked the punch by that minute, by a lot of things, taking it with his head because he couldn't use his arms other than like casting spells and taking hits. A couple hit him in the head. And he was really tired at this point. He woke up, his entire team and all of them are all knocked out. And in this version, Otter and all his team with the archer and all of them are there too. They actually are on the floor as well. They made a campsite similar to the Loki familia. And they actually goes to a similar area, but like not like right next to each other. They see each other because they hear something. One day they're like a little bit. They're actually when Bell wakes up because it was actually Otter and I's meeting that he busted into. What I mean by meeting is all their familia team party was there. Both their parties were there, just looking at each other because while the Loki is not as strong, they are almost there. They can actually fight, but they would lose that fight. They would just be having Betsy and Eyes being the last one standing, fighting against a couple people there standing up still. Betsy would probably get knocked out as Eyes takes the other dude out. Then you got the king versus the princess. The king would win that fight, but be drained a lot. So yeah, that's how it would have gone if they had fought. But Bell actually interferes by falling in, yelling, saying help. As he collapsed, Otter and them decide to put their teams together because they all need to get back there. They now have people they need to get there too. And they both see Bell. And in this version, Bell had been saved by both of them at a time. When he was getting stronger, he fought another Minotaur thinking he could handle it. Otter interfered and punched it through with a punch. And yeah, that was actually right after that Minotaur that got him interested in Eyes. He's now looks up to both of them, and he stands up and he says, "Hey, been a while, ain't it?" And he basically collapses into it with being tired. So he didn't actually notice them because he was completely exhausted. But he still got there. Sorry about that, guys. My phone kind of messed up. Yes, I do this on the phone. Anyway, everyone is completely exhausted, and they have nothing left to do. Bell himself is about to collapse, and they get the food. They eat that night, and this version is twice the size because there are a lot of people there. They all go to this, and this time they hear the god's noise. Same thing, but instead of it being Hestia, it's Zeus himself. I'm going to say that one of the people that's level 6 had some level 3s with him. They all came down here too. And Hestia wanted to get Bell back because she found out he was strong again. He was strong now. She wanted to get Bell back, but didn't tell Zeus this. But Zeus already knew it. He was being silent, but he was mad. And all of a sudden, they say, and that's the only gods that came. With them getting her, Zeus saying, "I'll be fine. If need be, I can just punch one through. I have the strength, you know." And they say, "Yes, but we aren't allowed to use our divine powers." And then he just straight up says, "Divine? I won't even need those." Because he just uses a physical punch breaking through a Minotaur that was right behind him. See? Small crystal. Sorry about that. And he just straight up puts it right there. And he starts going back to what he was doing. They were all walking there, and while he doesn't even need to use his divine powers, he will in a second, because they had kidnapped her. They actually had kidnapped a couple people. The messenger god and Hestia. And he's just like, "Oh no, it was Hestia. I'm gonna leave." And then when he hears about it being the messenger god, he doesn't really like the dude because he got him in trouble by all the women being in there taking a bath. Straight up shoved him in the water, just like, "You jerk." He hit the water like a rock. Hestia thought this would be her chance to get Bell back, but he sees all the women, he's just like, "I'm about to die." Because he thinks this, even though none of them have ill intent towards him, but he knows the guys are going to kill him if they find this thing out. So he straight up dips. And when he's running in the forest, then he accidentally stumbles onto her bathing, and she hits that water droplet. Actually, one pierces the tree, the other hit Bell in the head, sending him back a little bit, but it's mainly just sending him back. He was fine after this. He just wiped it off and just said, "Ow, my head." He apologizes, and they go and they visit them, and Belle says, "They were good adventurers. I heard the story." And she says, "What?" "The way they died. It was an ambush by another familia." I know how it would work. I almost had the same thing happen to me. Here. As he crafts using that he had actually grabbed beautiful flowers from the real world, a couple different bouquets, because he was actually going to give tribute to a couple adventurers who he knows had fallen, but he wasn't planning on doing it now. And in that zone, anything that he wants will be fine, but humans are a lot more difficult to stay fine because it doesn't have air much in that. So yeah. I'll cover the fight in part 2. Bye.